Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Jazakallah khair for joining us on Ramadan FN. It is 87.7. We are live in the studio, alhamdulillah. I'm your host, Amreen Razak, on today's show, which is Traversing Past Real Talk. You can join us. It'd be good to have some engagement from our listeners today. I know we're in the last days of Ramadan, barely a week to go, subhanAllah. The text number is 07748855055, so it'd be good to have some engagement. So in the studio with me today, I have Dr. Sahar. Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
Good, Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I'd like to say it's her first time in the studio, it's her first time on radio, and it's the first time doing live, so I'm really deeply honoured.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair for your time. I know how busy it is being a doctor, but inshallah, I'm going to introduce you and then we'll get started, inshallah. So I'm highlighting that we all come from different, varied paths, but we are one ummah and we are all reminders for each other. The guests that I've had so far are all professionals from all fields: writers, doctors, philanthropists, community educators, activists, artists, leaders, and women who usually don't get a light shone on them. It's usually behind their titles or being at home or I'm just this or I'm just that. So for me, it's not just about what they do only, it's the actual journey that they have taken to where they have arrived. And I believe every woman has a story that needs to be told and share her narrative. And in their stories, I believe, are healing and learning to move gracefully in this dunya to weave the tapestry of their past, but of those who have gone before. These sisters mostly have never been on radio or are not on social media, apart from the few exceptions that I've had this week. So I'll be sending them today's video, inshallah. These are real women of influence who I believe are changing our communities and go beyond on what they do and go further. Dr. Sahar is a senior house medical doctor and working in internal medicine at the LRI. She has a background in primary care, emergency medicine, acute medicine, and internal medicine, which we'll talk about because I have no clue what that is. In her studies, she actually became a medical doctor in the West Indies in Grenada, born and raised in New York, and got married and moved to the UK. And alhamdulillah, she's a mother of 3. She loves spending time with her family and friends and enjoys going to the gym, cooking, painting, traveling, and writing poetry. I welcome you, Dr. Sahar. Jazakallah khair for joining us today in the studio.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
No, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So let's talk a little bit about, so how's kind of Ramadan going for you? How's it been this year so far?
Actually, you know what? I think, alhamdulillah, the fasts are not long at all.
Yeah, really short.
You know, and they're very doable. I think the only challenging part is, I think, the sleep.
Yeah.
You know, because obviously, you know, you go to sleep and then you wake up for suhoor and, you know, because, you know, I have a family, I have to, you know, wake everyone up and, you know, we all have to have our suhoor and then, go back to sleep and then it's work and school and
back to it and
on
like
the run.
trying to just like do the day to day.
Yeah.
So, so has this year's Ramadan been different to previous Ramadans for you? Or have you seen a certain shift in the way you do things like yourself?
You know, subhanAllah, I think it's a lot easier this time around.
Okay.
It's just because with work and I think, you know, with the kids' schedules, like, you know, by the time we all sort of get settled, it's around 5 o'clock and 5:30, and then it's time to, you know, prepare for our iftar. And
it's not long.
Yeah, no.
In between.
But I think the only thing is we're rushing, because we're just, you know, oh no, it's time to break fast.
Yeah,
you know, so,
before you know it, it's kind of, it's so quick, especially that last, I'd say the last 90 minutes.
Yes.
As soon as 4 o'clock kicks in, you're like, oh, subhanAllah, where's the time gone?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, today I'm like, okay, after the station, I need to go and do this, because obviously it's coming to Eid. I'm like, I need to get stuff done. And, you know, all of that. So you just need to really pause and like, hang on a minute. No, like things will get done.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
It's okay.
Just take a breather, you know? SubhanAllah. Okay, so how do you balance with children, work, family, you know, if you've got extended family, etc.? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so basically, I've decided to go part-time in my work, just because I think full-time with like on-calls and, you know, night duties and regular shifts was getting a bit much for me. But once I decided to go part-time, which, you know, thankfully I was given that option.
Awesome.
It was a lot more manageable.
Alhamdulillah.
Because then I could, give time to my family and, like time for myself.
Exactly.
Well.
I was going to come to that because I think, and it's really important, I think, for women to really, and I think a lot of women are now, is that you can still do your work and we all need to work, we need to pay the bills, but not at the sacrifice of what's important to you.
Yeah, definitely.
And that we can make informed choices. Yes, we give things a chance and things time to see, okay, if it's working, but then look at it in a different way and say, okay, actually it's not working for me. Yeah. And I can go to my workplace or wherever I am that something needs to change.
Yeah.
And like you say, for yourself. So then brings me back to the next question is, so how you're trying to balance your work-life balance, obviously, to maintain an equilibrium.
Yes.
But what do you do to kind of manage your own kind of self-care and your spiritual health? How do you?
Well, I think, sticking to my salahs is very important, because it is like, a form of meditation as well.
Of course.
When you're praying and when you're in that zone, and it's just you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's just, it's just so peaceful, and you just, in that moment, you're just concentrating on yourself, and 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So,
alhamdulillah,
like, our hospital has a separate, a masjid.
Yeah, it's brilliant, mashallah.
Yeah, so we have that sort of accommodation, for the Muslims. Other than that, like, I think it's very important to take time out for yourself, like I was saying. So yes, like being a mother, being a doctor, at work, I'm, I have to be equal to the men, or try to be even better because that's just what's expected. Yeah. And then when you're home, you're mom. Yeah. And like a lot of mothers, you put your family first and you put yourself on the back burner. It's very important to have, like fill your cup of tea up first, because then if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of everyone else?
100%.
So I do things like, that's why I think going to the gym is very important, because for me, that's like a way of stress relief. Yeah. And again, it's, it's a healthy sort of practice, whatever you like to do. Everyone has their own interests when they want to exercise and get active. People go for walks, I like to, like I said, I like to go to the gym. And it's a natural way of releasing the happy hormone.
This is what I was going to say. You just hit the nail on the head.
You know, rather than sort of, trying to, take medication and things.
Or like through food, as people do.
Exactly, or through food, because there's emotional eating as well, isn't there?
Of course.
But again, that's very temporary.
Yeah.
So I tell my patients this all the time is, try to exercise. I mean, I know, people, it just sounds like a cliche, but it's really not. Like, until you actually get out and, get moving, it's, you don't realize the benefits of it.
Yeah, for sure. And like you say, it's the happy hormones, it's the serotonin that we miss out on.
Definitely.
I was speaking to one of I had a nutritionist a few days ago, and she was saying exactly, she goes, just get out and get for a walk. Yeah. She goes, it's not about necessarily just thinking you have to go to the gym, because that's not for everybody, like you say. Exactly. But find what that physical, that blood circulation, like we all need it, subhanallah. Yeah. So what about in terms of, like, because you've mentioned obviously like poetry, like reading, what about kind of self-care in terms of yourself, like to manage your spiritual, I say to elevate your spirituality, like what other things do you think you do, or what you think wish you could do more of?
I think I'd like to attend, sisters' gatherings more, because a lot of times it's in the day, and I'm working, so it's quite difficult for me to even try to attend online. But when I do get time, I do go, like the days I have off, because my schedule is not set. From week to week it differs depending if I'm on call or not. And I think that really helps. It sort of like brings you back. When you're sitting in that gathering discussing, Islamic topics, it's quite helpful.
Yeah, it's medicine, like, and alhamdulillah, like in Leicester, we're really blessed because there are many sisters gatherings. Alhamdulillah, if I wouldn't join either in person or like this last week has been just, alhamdulillah, I've been really fortunate to go to gatherings and, certain iftars and things. But when I know me as a person who's serving other people in my own work, if I'm not filling myself with what nurtures me, you just can't survive on just running on empty,
No,
you know.
no, you can't.
And we need that spiritual guidance, that spiritual help. Yes, we can pray on our own, and that's all great, alhamdulillah. But to lean on sisters and sisterhood as well is a huge part of our feminine essence as well.
Definitely.
It's so important.
Definitely.
So how do you kind of do you know when you feel it, when you're feeling okay in a certain way, okay, I need to go for this? Obviously with the work that you do, it's very vital work, subhanallah. And you've been doing it for how long now?
For almost 15 years.
Oh wow, subhanallah.
Yeah.
So it's really important to gauge that balance and stuff. So what do you do for fun then? Like, apart from thinking about the children and, you know, what's fun for you? Like, you know?
I think, you know, spending time with my friends. You know, alhamdulillah, I'm really blessed to have like a good group of friends.
Good network, alhamdulillah.
You know, like at work and outside of work as well. Like a really
awesome.
Supportive community,
yeah, mashallah.
And we have like get-togethers. You know, we basically like we'll go out like, you know, to cafes and, you know, just spend time together.
Yeah, but it's not really necessarily doing like massive things and stuff, which is nice, okay, sometimes. But I think just having deep conversations, which we're all seeking, is like deep connection, right?
Exactly.
You know, especially coming out after the pandemic and, you know, the amount of high levels of mental health and isolation, especially within our Muslim community, is huge. And we've had many speakers and professionals come on and speak about that as well. So what do you see in your kind of day-to-day work then? Like, tell us a little bit.
So basically, I usually see, because I'm in internal medicine at the moment, which is like general medicine. So it's people that have been admitted that need hospital admission and treatment.
Okay.
So, you know, it's different things that they come in with. So, you know, anything like, you know, having a chest infection or something like, you know, meningitis, which is like an inflammation of, you know, the brain. You know, anything like abdominal pain or clots, you know, in the legs or the lungs. You know, people even come in with, you know, mental health issues, not coping at home, you know, and it's sometimes, you know, it's a bit sad to see like even elderly patients, you know, not coping because they don't have that support and they can't manage at home. And the only way to sort of get themselves back on their feet is come into hospital.
Because they feel they have no other option.
No.
Especially like trying to get into the GP, having to call up in the morning. And we've had many of our, like we've had people within the council and, you know, doctors and things, and obviously our politicians as well, who've come in and say, you know, obviously it's a huge part in terms of trying to, and we've got the hub in Leicester to try and negate that, you know, so people have got somewhere to go to, so they don't end up in A&E, for example. It's a huge part. So what are the, so how that, okay, so let's then go, so how does that affect you on a day-to-day, and how do you kind of cut off from what you see in your day-to-day?
So I think, you know, my kids actually asked me the same thing.
Bless.
And I think I try not to let it affect me, you know, because you know that you're there to care for these people. You're doing the best you can. You have to be safe. And then you sort of, once your shift is over, you make sure that, you know, the thing, whatever's needs to be done for the patient is done. And then you hand, if anything's concerning, then you hand it over to the night team or the evening team to sort of continue the care. So as long as they're stable, then, you know, then I'm happy. You know, I think having good communication with the families as well. Communication is key, you know, with the patient and the families. So as long as, you know, you're satisfied and they're satisfied, then I can go home happy and saying, okay, I will deal with whatever's need to be dealt with.
Do you ever go home and like, I don't know if your children are younger or older, but, you know, your immediate family, do you ever go home? Because a lot of people, whatever they industry or institution they work with, they kind of give themselves 5 minutes to kind of have a rant or what's upset them or whatever. Do you ever kind of do that where you have to speak about a certain thing that's maybe got to you, or something that you're just mulling over, where you have to kind of you know, let it out in some way? Do you ever do that? Okay, that's all right then. That's not, because I think it's so important. I think sometimes what I find, especially with the work I do, working with trauma as well, is sometimes you need to speak to people who are not going to give you a logical answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to be able to express it and be heard.
Yeah.
And if it's a rant, it's a rant. But if it's something that's upset you, you just need to say it and no holds barred kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And then obviously being in the institution that you are, you would have supervision and support in that way.
Yeah.
And obviously
Definitely.
services within the hospital to support you.
Definitely.
And I think it's so important. So what would you say to people who maybe don't always take the steps to get the help or the support, who are professionals within your industry who maybe for whatever reason are not getting the support? Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say, there is lots of support actually out there. Sometimes we just don't realize it.
Yeah.
There is a organization called Amica, which is specifically for people in the NHS.
Yeah.
And doctors especially. And they're very quick to sort of reach out to you if you ask them for help.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of like free services in the community, that you can find on the NHS website.
Yeah.
So I think we're all human.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We all deal with stress differently. We all, deal with, our emotions differently. But there's always someone there. Usually we have like supervisors, clinical supervisors or colleagues, that we can sort of reach out to in confidentiality. So I would say don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't, then you'll never know, and you'll never know what sort of help is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really helpful. And I think it's so important, because I think even when people, because I know of a long time ago when the services maybe weren't as great, and people we didn't know who to reach out, or they just didn't want to go through somebody within the workplace, you know. But I think it's so important, like, these are vital services that, within any industry are providing so much support. And like you said, there's so much within the community as well to reach out to as well. So Jazakallah for sharing that. Okay, so what would you say, either who or what have you been influenced by in the biggest way?
Ooh,
so it could be like personal, within your family, people who you look up to, but also people of the past, our Sahabas, or greatest people who are not from Islamic history, but anyone great that you have been influenced by or have impacted you in some way.
Yeah. I think personally for me, my aunt, my mom's sister, she's really influenced me. And alhamdulillah, like I was very fortunate to have, sort of grow up with her as well. And she's been through her own sort of journey. She went to she's also a doctor, and she went to medical school in India, and then she redid medical school in America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Having 2 children. Went through medical school again, and then, did her training, and then went on to, be a successful doctor, managing the house, everything, so I really look up to her.
MashaAllah.
So, alhamdulillah, like, I've been blessed. Like, I know, like, if there's anything, like, that's bothering me, I can always pick up the phone, and sometimes if I can't speak to my mom about it, I'll speak to her, because she's like my second mother. So alhamdulillah, I've been very blessed in that sense, to have a very supportive family. And then, I think having influence-wise, I think your experiences as well influence you,
for sure,
and shape you. And when you go home and reflect on that, I think then the next time something like that comes up, that situation, you know how to act better in that situation. So when I'm seeing, patients that are unwell, like, in emergency medicine, on the emergency floor, and they just come in and they're just sick, and it's like, what do you do? And then, I mean, alhamdulillah, there's protocols for us, what we do and how we treat them. But, not every patient will fit into each sort of scenario, so you sort of have to think, and you have to do what's best for the patient.
Like, it's what it's presented, isn't it, at the time. And I can't imagine what that's like the amount of times I've been there, like you with family, or my parents went through a lot with hospital and stuff. But subhanallah, if it wasn't for the frontline teams, like I highly hats off to anyone who's within in the NHS or in kind of trauma rooms, and have to think yes, there's protocols, but you have to use what you see and what you think is, like you say, is best for the patient or the client, subhanallah. And it's no easy job, I'm sure.
No, I think it's, I feel so, I feel for the patients as well, because sometimes waiting in A&E is not ideal, hours and hours waiting to be seen, but I think it's important to understand from our side as well, it's there's only a certain amount of staff that can.
You're working with so many logistical things that it's not, you can't put a plan in place. There's certain amount, but there's other things that come into it, subhanallah. So the transition from studying, then you were in New York, right? And then from then you got married, and you came to the UK. Let's talk a little bit about that then. So how was the culture change, the language, the mixed families maybe, or the community and the kind of way of life and adjusting? How was that? What was going through your mind at that time?
It was a very big adjustment, actually, because I did not realize how different the British culture is to the American culture. I thought we were just all the same until I came over here. And,
had you not been to the UK before at all then?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, just Heathrow Airport.
MashaAllah.
But, no, I never lived here, never visited, because I don't have any family here, actually. All my family's back in America.
Okay.
Or India.
Yeah.
But, majority of my family is in America.
Okay.
So, because I was born and raised there. And, when we decided to come here, because my husband's got family here. So it's a very big culture shock to me. I think
pick out some of the biggest things that you found, like, wow, okay, how do I deal with this?
I think the people here are a little more conservative.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's putting it mildly. Yeah.
And I think that's just the culture. And that's fine. And people can be a little more proper here. I think in America we're a little more loud,
a lot more relaxed and loud and just chilled.
Yeah, exactly. And I found that a bit, it's a bit like taken aback, like, okay, people,
a bit
this
strict.
is not acceptable. I need to sort of change myself here to, just sort of, even in like the workplace, there's a lot of sort of, like the British culture, like even the humor is different.
It's very different.
It's to the American.
It's more dry.
Yeah.
Whereas American is a lot more kind of blatant, a bit more, not as dry, not under surface. It's not as discreet.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So it's So, I think now I've been here like almost 10 years now.
Okay, mashallah.
It's around 10 years. So now I think my my sort of mannerisms and the way I speak is changing a little bit. When I go back home, I get made fun of because of the way like I'm saying things, or just like Z and Z or H and H, things like that. So my cousins and they all like. But alhamdulillah.
So what about in terms of like the Muslim community? Like, what's the difference like from obviously being in New York and then coming here, and a place like Leicester? As well.
To be honest, I thank my my lucky stars that I'm here because it's a huge Muslim community. And I think I did need that, especially coming from America, because I was quite involved in the Islamic community in America.
Mashallah.
And coming here, initially I felt a bit lost because I didn't know like what was out here, like what are
of course it's like a whole new
world. So and someone who's like quite active back home, I didn't see like I couldn't like, there's a halaqah, can I join that? Or like, oh, this event, oh, should I go there? So, and I think because I didn't know anybody either, that was a big thing. Because I didn't have any friends. I didn't have, I had family in the sense, yes, I had my, thank God I had my in-laws, which is great. But, so, but, it's the Muslim community. What I'm glad is that, it's quite active.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. And even for my kids, I'm really happy that we decided to settle here.
Stay here, yeah.
Because it affects them as well.
Of course.
And I think with all the social media and, with everything out there now,
it's just a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot for their minds.
Yeah.
And it's really important to be part of sort of a community where, people can support each other and
for
guide
sure.
each other.
For sure. And I always say, and as a reminder as well to myself, is that Allah hasn't created us to be in silos and be on our own and just stay even in our own little community. The earth has been made for us to travel and get to know it. Definitely. Once we get to know it, we'll get to know ourselves. Once we get to know ourselves, we'll get to know our Rabb. And ultimately, it's about getting to know our Maker. And there's different ways we can do that. And hence why the show is called Traversing Paths, because ultimately, once we get to know our path and know everything that we're given is how we deal with it, which then brings me on to, so has there been a time where there's been, yes, you've had a transition, obviously coming over from New York and to Leicester, married, children, all of that work, balancing in-laws and all the different hats that you wear. Has there been a time where you found it so challenging, and what has been the thing or something that's got you through it? Like, what, in terms of reflections, have you got anything at a time when you went through something, and share what you feel, is going to be valuable and comfortable for you to share?
Yeah. So I think there was a time in my career where I had to make a decision to sort of switch my career options.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure like what to do. And it was a big hit for me.
Yeah.
And I think what got me through was prayer. Praying tahajjud. I always say to people, if you really want something, it's tahajjud. You have to, because that's when it's you and, waking up in the middle of the night and you're just like asking for whatever it is that you need. So prayer, your family, support, because they're the people that really that know you, and they know you inside and out. You know, sometimes you don't even need to say anything, and they could just read your expression. So alhamdulillah, my spouse is very supportive.
Mashallah.
And, my kids as well. I've got a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Wow. Mashallah.
So
that's amazing. Alhamdulillah.
So, even they were there for me.
They're like little mini adults, aren't they, at that age? They actually, sometimes, because I speak to so many of my friends who've got teenage kids, they're like, Amra, you don't know how hard it is. I was like, but you're so lucky. They're like mini adults, right? But they're exactly the version of you. So they're going to tell you things that you might not want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, oh, okay.
Okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. But it's family that's really got me through in prayer, reading the Quran and, listening to, alhamdulillah, there's so many sheikhs out there, like Omar Suleiman is
Mashallah.
One of my favorites.
Same. The delivery is just beautiful, and it's just so bite-sized, so easy to listen.
Yeah, a lot of the times I'll just do it when I'm in the car.
Yeah.
I'm going to work, coming back from work.
It's using the time,
yeah,
effectively, so our mind doesn't wander or,
exactly.
And that's what I love about a lot of the, scholars on social media is, alhamdulillah, I believe I'm a firm believer, you take what you need to.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And don't try and overburden yourself and make it so difficult for yourself where you got to do this class and you got to, because there's that high anxiety that people feel that during the month of Ramadan, they have to do so much.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Obviously, we need to make use of our time effectively, but know your compass, know what you're capable and what you're able to take in.
Definitely.
And it's the quality above quantity.
I was just going to say,
subhanallah.
It's totally quality above quantity, because Allah knows your intention.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're trying to do the best you can, then that's the best you can do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's knowing the self, right?
Exactly.
It's knowing what works for you, and and what doesn't, and stuff.
Exactly.
So, okay, so if you're listening in, listeners, we're on Ramadan FM on 87.7. We're in the studio, and the text number is 077 488 55055. I'm joined live in the studio with Dr. Seher. It's her first time. She works at the LRI, mashallah, and we had some really good insight to her world, alhamdulillah. So please drop in any questions you might have or anything that resonates with you. But yeah, it'll be good to have some engagement, inshallah. Okay, so what would you say to your younger self?
Oh, my younger self.
If there was a time you'd wish you'd received some advice and wish you'd got it before you got to that point.
Oh, okay. I would say always stand up for yourself. You know, don't be sort of influenced by people.
Yeah.
You know, whoever it may be.
Yeah.
I think stand up for what you believe in. You know, I know myself. I like to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like to sort of, argue with people, or I'm sort of this type.
Not confrontational.
Yeah.
But this is what's embedded. Working from a trauma background, it's what's embedded from when we're children, that we have to shut up and listen, or girls don't say nothing, or just go along with the flow. It's easier than to rock the boat.
Yeah.
And we've taken that trauma on from our mothers and our fathers. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to recognize it. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So any other advice that you would say, whether to any kind of like, what would you say to your children? Like the life that you've lived, the transitioning, education, traveling, life challenges in terms of, our deen. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. It's never a straight. It's linear. Alhamdulillah. What kind of advice would you give to people, or the younger version of yourself, or even your children, to be fair?
Yeah, I think always try to make the best of your situation, because you're not always going to be in the same situation. I always tell them, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Alhamdulillah.
So, and you need to be practical about things. Yes, obviously emotions are important, but you need to sort of, sometimes if things are getting overwhelming, you need to step back. You need to just look at the situation and think, if it's like something difficult, yes, it's a difficult time that you're going through. Yes, you need to, there is a time for grief. There is a time for sorrow. Yeah. But, after you've cried, after you've, gotten angry, or, just let it out, let out your emotions. Okay, then you need to move on. Yeah. You can't keep lingering on one thing. It's not good for your physical health or your mental health. Yeah. And I think that's really important, because that's the only way, you will be able to move forward.
100%. 100%. I always say to people, especially like women, that if you don't have a happy mom, you don't have a happy home.
That's true.
Right? So you have, and that's the same to dads as well. Whatever the circumstances are, if you're happy, you'll have a happy wife.
Yeah. Exactly.
But also at the same time, and because, what we've seen, and that we're at the point in our life where, and you've got mashallah 3 children, is that if you're not in a good space, it's gonna only affect your children. Yeah. And if we don't work on that, and we're not constantly developing and working on ourselves, then, like you say, you just feel living in the past and just kind of holding on to that. Yeah. Work through it.
Exactly.
Subhanallah.
Exactly. And that's why I think being, self-care is so important. Yeah. Because, like you said, if you're not happy, then no one will be happy.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you emotionally regulate then? Obviously, aside from your children, but how do you emotionally regulate, especially with what you see, the work that you do, balancing everything that you do? Yeah. How do you emotionally? Yes, you've got your spiritual time, but what other things you do that to kind of, do you have a daily thing that you do to make sure you're checking in with yourself? Do you have what support network? How does that work for you?
So I think I have a very close knit, like sort of family at work, you know, and I think we understand each other,
Yeah.
you know, because
Awesome.
we're sort of all going through the same situation.
Yeah, 100%.
So talking to each other about, you know, certain things that are going on at work, you know, or patient cases, some, you know,
Yeah.
even like if there's something, you know, someone is not talking to you respectfully, for
Yeah.
example, you know, you still need to emotionally. You can't obviously lash back at the patient.
Yeah,
You know, you have
of course
to.
not.
You know, obviously they're upset, they're unwell, which is understandable. But
Yeah.
you sort of have to take a step back and, you know, still be respectful to them.
Yeah.
Saying that, I mean, you know, I think that we all need to sort of, patient and doctors, we both need to understand each other. You know, because we do try to take their best interest into mind, and sometimes if they don't feel that way, and they get frustrated as well, which is understandable.
Yeah.
You know, I feel for them, but then me myself, I think have come to the point where I try not to react. You know, and if I do start to get, you know, feel like uncomfortable in the situation, I just remove myself from the situation, and then I'll come back when I'm feeling better. I think sometimes just taking time out for yourself for like 5 to 10 minutes, reflecting on it, and then coming back to the situation is much better than sort of standing there and getting upset.
Yeah. And it's like you say, it's taking that step back and just taking a breather, and taking yourself away. You know, the hadith of like when there's somebody angry, you know, you give them water. If they're lying down, you get them to sit up. You know, there's a whole process, isn't there? So it's kind of that reminds me of that, you know. Okay, then so kind of brings me on to, have you, whether in your professional or your personal life, have you ever felt conflicted within your belief? It's a heavy question, but you know, trying to.
So there are situations where I have, and if I do, then I won't do it. I would go speak to someone more senior, explain to them the situation and how I feel about it. And if I'm not comfortable with it, then I would speak to another colleague to see if they would sort of take over. And if they were comfortable with that situation. So if I don't agree with it, or if I don't feel comfortable, I wouldn't. You know, I wouldn't sort of take that on. You know.
And I think it's you know, we all have our, it comes down to values and our ethics as well, isn't it? So then leads me on to, so what are the most values that are important to you?
Hard work, honesty, especially when you're dealing with the patient, and in life in general. I think integrity, and being sort of understanding, you know, and sort of having an open mind in every situation, because there's always two sides to something.
For sure.
So, and I think you need to be flexible in life. You can't be very rigid, because you can, you know, be thrown anything. And you need to be prepared. So this is what I tell my kids. You know, for example, like moving to the UK, working in the NHS, I never thought I would be here. You know, but that's what Allah, you know, thought was best for me. So I'm here now. You know, and alhamdulillah, no regrets. Happy. You know,
Alhamdulillah.
But
Alhamdulillah. And you know, it's like you say, it's having that trust. That tawakkul, and saying, you know what, this is the situation I found myself in. I can either go that way or that way. I'm either going to give it my all. And give it 100% and make it work. If it works, alhamdulillah. If it doesn't, then I've taken a lesson and there's a blessing in it.
Exactly.
Alhamdulillah. That's
that tawakkul is the most important thing.
For sure. But you know, when, you know, obviously when people are going through stuff, obviously like with the work that you do, there's obviously times where people think, oh, what is going on? And, you know, why am I being tested this way and that? So from your kind of experience, your advice, you know, in whether it's personal or with your professional hat on, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's kind of being challenged, I'd say, and having this conflict, this pull that, hang on a minute, why is this happening to me? You know, what's going on?
Yeah. So I would say, you know, first things is Allah never puts you through a test that you cannot bear, you know, and if I feel sometimes I'm like, why am I being tested like this? You know, this is a difficult situation for me.
Yeah.
Then I remind myself, no, you can do it, because Allah would not have put you in this situation if, you know, if He didn't think you were strong enough to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I just I make dua. You know, Allah, if this is best for me, please, you know, bring it closer. If not, then take me away, and please let me have no regrets, because you know, this is what my heart wants. But if you don't think that's right, then just please take it away.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Okay, so it's kind of coming towards the end of the show. I'm just going to ask you, I think, a couple of questions. So, with the work that you see with your children growing up, mashallah, within your own kind of personal circles, the women that you have around you in terms of your networks, what do you see as some of the issues within our community that you think need highlighting, or things that you wish you could change or influence in any way?
I think women's health. You know, I think a lot of women, they don't speak about their issues, you know, medically or even psychologically. I think that that's something that needs sort of having more attention for. People sort of just try to brush their own, you know, needs sometimes under the carpet, you know, and I don't think that that's right. So I think there is a need for more of sort of a women's sort of health. You know, I don't know if we can have like a women's health clinic, you know, and I'd love to see that.
I think that would be really awesome. Like, I know there's other cities that have those. But if there was particularly just for women. And obviously I think there's so many nuances, and there's so many, because of our culture. And obviously our religion as well, because sometimes people, it's so convoluted for some people. That, you know, obviously there's things that they can't, you know, go to a male, which is absolutely 100%, everyone has a right for that. But also it's just like you say, it's just like speaking up, saying, oh, actually I think I've got this, but they don't. It's like you say, it's always things are brushed on. Yes, things are getting better in some ways, but then I also think some things are not.
No, and they just, you know? Sometimes they're just embarrassed to speak about it. You know, and I think sometimes, you know, if they have that support, or know that, okay, I can go to this women's health clinic and I can, you know, have this problem dealt with. You know, no judgment, no, you know, I think that would be great.
And there's, like you said, there's so much, because it's like psychologically and trauma based as well. It manifests obviously physically. But then when people are trying to go through the normal route of speaking to their GP, or they end up in A&E, for example, it's because they haven't been able to deal with the internal issue that's already going on.
That's
you know, and we're seeing it more and more. But I'm not sure what the solution is. I think what seems to be the theme on all our shows that we're all talking about different topics is that we are only as strong as our community. And alhamdulillah, Leicester is a beautiful community with so many amazing people doing great work. But I still think there's always room for us to improve in our own individuality, or within our own organizations that we're part of, or whether we're not, or whether, you know, you're just somebody who's at home and is you know, who works from home, or, you know, you're making a home with your family and your children. You still have a voice, because you are the community. And like they say, you know, a child is raised by its community. You know, subhanallah. And I think there's a willingness and a need for that to happen as well. What do you hope for the future?
So I hope that, you know, women, especially women, that we sort of come out more. That we are not as shy or timid. You know, and that it's okay to sort of, you know, share your thoughts, share your experiences.
Mashallah.
You know, so I think, you know,
Alhamdulillah.
Michelle.
That's amazing. Alhamdulillah. I'm getting told on the countdown. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for your insights. It's been really inspiring to listen to. I'm going to watch back as well. I've taken a lot from you, alhamdulillah, today. And I hope our listeners have as well. Inshallah, I'm in the studio with Sister Sabina tomorrow, who'll be sharing her stories, mashallah. Amazing work as well. So, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.